Good morning, everyone. This meeting for the 23rd Senate Standing Committee on Executive Appointments and Government Investigation will now come to order. The date is October 28th, and the time is exactly 10:07 a.m. Mr. Devin Macaronis, please call the roll of the committee members.
Senator Selena R. Babauta,
Presente.
Senator Jude U. Hofschneider, Senator Karina L. Magofnia,
Present.
Senator Paul A. Manglona, Senator Paul A. Manglona,
Senator Paul, are you there?
Present.
Senator Donald M. Manglona.
Present.
Madam Chair, 4 members are present, 1 member is absent.
Mrs. Mosse, Mr. Macaronis, for today's session, Senator Jude Hofschneider will be excused. Before we proceed with the introductions of our professional staff at the Legislative Bureau, I'd like to remind everyone that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and local channel 23. If for any reason we need to take a break, Facebook will continue to stream live, just for your information. This committee also appreciates minimal distractions during sessions, so we ask for your cooperation this morning to please silence all your electronic devices. I am Selena Babauta, and I serve as your committee chair. And now that you are acquainted with the members of the committee, I'd like to introduce the professional staff of the Bureau who are assisting the committee in session today. Our legal counsel, Mr. Joe Bermudez, is present with us. Our legislative assistant, who we rely heavily on, Mr. Devin Macaronis, to keep our technology recording and everything running smoothly. We have our IT manager, Mr. Jonathan Diaz, and to keep order and decorum at all times in the session, in the chamber, we have our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Benjamin Terlahi. At this time, we will move forward with number 2 on the item of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Senator Karina Magofnia, and it has been seconded by Senator Donald Manglona. Are there any objections to the motion? There being no objections raised, the motion hereby passes, and today's agenda is duly adopted. I will now call on Mr. Paul Regis and the 2 nominees, Mr. Antonio Leon Guerrero Cabrera and Ms. Florence Camacho Sablan, to join us in the chamber. Mr. Regis will formally introduce the 2 nominees to the committee. And Mr. Regis, you may begin when you are ready.
Good morning again. Hafiday Zantiro, Chairwoman Selena R. Babauta, and honorable members of the Senate Executive Appointments and Government Investigations Committee. Thank you for taking the time in conducting the public hearing for today out of your busy schedule. For record purposes, my name is Jean-Paul B. Regis, Special Projects Coordinator under the Office of the Governor. I am here once more to represent the administration, and on behalf of the Honorable Governor Arno I. Palacios and the Honorable Lieutenant Governor David M. Apateng, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I am here to introduce Ms. Florence C. Sablan and Mr. Antonio L.G. Cabrera, the Governor and Lieutenant Governor's nominee for the Commonwealth Election Commission, representing the 3rd Senatorial District of the Island of Saipan. Ms. Sablan is an exceptional public servant with an impressive 26 years of experience in executive administration within the government and public sector. Her proven track record highlights her commitment to leadership and excellence in services. Mr. Cabrera, for his part, is a highly accomplished veteran who served with distinction in the United States Marine Corps for over 27 years. Additionally, he excelled in various roles within the semi-government agencies for some 18 years, demonstrating his unwavering commitment to public service. Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apateng have expressed their complete trust and confidence in Ms. Sablan and Mr. Cabrera's ability to serve on the Commonwealth Election Commission. We are confident that they are well prepared to answer any questions you may have and present what they envision for the future, and we kindly ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you again, Madam Chair, Sizus Mosi, honorable members, Zangilisa, for the opportunity to introduce them to this august body.
Mrs. Mosse, Senor Regis. I now open the floor for public comments. If you wish to make public comments, I ask that you please state your name for the record and the entity you representing. And you are allowed pursuant to the Senate rules 5 minutes. You may begin.
Good morning, Chairwoman Babauta, honorable members of the Committee on Executive Appointment and Government Investigation. My name is Kayla S. Igito, and I'm the Executive Director for the Commonwealth Election Commission. On behalf of the CC Board and myself, I'd like to express our strong support for Governor Arnold Palacios and Lieutenant Governor David Apatang's nomination of Mr. Antonio Cabrera and Ms. Florence Sablan to represent the 3rd Senatorial District. As we approach the 2024 general election in just 8 days, it is crucial that we have a full board to ensure a smooth and effective election process. With early voting set to begin tomorrow, October 29, having Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Sablan in place will greatly enhance our capability to serve the community during this critical time. I look forward to working under the leadership and guidance of Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Sablan, and I kindly urge this esteemed body to act on their nomination and confirmation. Having them on board before Election Day is vital for the integrity and efficiency of the election process. Thank you, Sizusmasi Ilisuremi, for your support.
Sizusmasi Executive Director Kayla Igito. The floor is still open for public comments.
Good morning. Madam Chairwoman Selena Babalta and the Senate members of the EAGI Committee. I am Susan Babalta, Chairwoman of the Commonwealth of Election Commission. I am here in support of the nominees of Ms. Florence and Sablan and Mr. Antonio Cabrera to become CEC commissioners to represent the 3rd Senatorial District of Saipan. Ms. Sablan and Mr. Cabrera have decades of experiences and knowledge from a vast life of public service that will benefit them and CEC to ensure their roles as CEC commissioners to be fair, just, and impartial, to uphold all the laws, to guide and support our community members and leaders and the commission. I'd like to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor for nominating Ms. Sablan and Mr. Cabrera, and I applaud the nominees for their willingness to accept this nomination. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Have a good day.
Sizusmasi Chairwoman Susan Babalta. The floor is still open for public comments.
Good morning, Madam Chair and honorable members of this committee. My apologies, Ate Flores. I didn't know that they scheduled your hearing together of Onkuton. Anyways, good morning, Hafade and Tiro, honorable members of this distinguished body. My name is Joel Castro Camacho, and I am currently the Vice Speaker for the 23rd Northern Marianas Legislature. I am here before you today, my apologies, to offer my full support in Mr. Antonio Leon Guerrero Cabrera's nomination to serve as a member of the Commonwealth Election Commission and Ante Florence. As you can see before you through Mr. Cabrera's resume, Mr. Cabrera has served not only the Commonwealth but our country with full distinction, serving in the U.S. Marines and the U.S. Armed Forces. Mr. Cabrera has also served in many capacities within the CNMI government. I am more than confident in his ability to serve as a member of the Commonwealth Election Commission. Aside from his many accolades, Mr. Cabrera and his family also continue to serve the community through the San Roque Parish Council. Thank you for your service, Uncle. And with that said, I humbly ask for your consideration in confirming Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Siblon. I support both nominees to serve in the Commonwealth Election Commission. Thank you, Jesus Masi and Hiliso.
Jesus Mosse, Vice Speaker Joel Camacho. The floor is still open for public comments. If there are no further public comments, we will now close that portion of the agenda. I'd like to recognize the presence of Ms. Andrea Sablon, the wife of our first elected delegate. She's in the chamber with us today, as well as the siblings of Ms. Florence Camacho. Welcome to your chamber. Aside from the public testimony you've just heard, I just wanted to, for informational purposes, state for the record that the committee also received letters of support from the following individuals: Ms. Susan R. Babalta, Chair of the Commonwealth Election Commission; Mr. Jose P. Kiyoshi, Vice Chairman of the Commonwealth Election Commission; Mr. Chris C. Camacho, Parish Pastoral Council President for San Roque Church. Additionally, the committee did not receive any letters in opposition of the nominations before this committee today. We will now move on to new business. I want to thank both nominees for your dedicated and long service to our Commonwealth and to our nations. Welcome, and welcome to your families. And also for taking on the desire to serve on this important board. Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Sablon were nominated by Governor Palacios on October 7th and October 10th, 2024, respectively. And they are here today because it is the responsibility of this committee to examine their qualifications and fitness to serve on such an important board. It is this committee that recommends to either confirm or reject their nomination to the full Senate. This is a unique mandate of this NMI Senate pursuant to our laws and constitutions, and that is why we are here today. Voting is the cornerstone of a healthy democracy. It is the mechanism through which the will of the people is expressed and translated into policy. When citizens actively participate in elections, they are not just casting a ballot. They are choosing their leaders. They are influencing public policy. They are holding officials accountable. Voting is not merely a right, but a responsibility of every citizen in our society. It is a fundamental way to engage with the democratic process and shape the future of our society. By exercising their right to vote, citizens empower themselves and contribute to the benefit of their community. A core principle of democracy is the idea that all citizens are equal before the law and have an equal opportunity to participate in society. This helps prevent tyranny and ensure that everyone has a stake in the success of their island. But democracy is not without its challenges. It can be slow moving, and it requires constant vigilance from its citizens to protect it. At this time, I now ask the nominees to please rise and raise your right hand, and Mr. Macaronis will administer the oath to you.
Antonio Leon Guerrero Cabrera and Florence Camacho Sablon, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I will open the floor to Mr. Antonio Cabrera to provide any opening statements, should you wish to do so.
Madam Chair, Selena Babalta, and members of this committee. I thank both the Honorable Governor Arnold I. Palacios and the Honorable David M. Apatang for entrusting me with this very important duty and job in the Commonwealth. I already heard that I spent time in the Marine Corps, and also after 27 and a half years, and worked 18 years in the Commonwealth, retired in 2011. I want to just say that, yes, the election or voting in our Commonwealth is no different than any other jurisdiction. It is a very crucial area to be mindful of, especially when we are given the right to vote for people that are running for office. It is nothing that we take very, we need to be very mindful and very serious about this event during an election period. I would like to take the opportunity to come back and work for the Commonwealth government and to fully understand exactly how the process work in our election here in the Commonwealth. I hear so many different information, different experiences that people go through. And it is something that we need to be very mindful that the election process is a very sacred commitment that voters have when they're entering the voting polls booth to elect officials of their choice. Many informations that I've heard or people talk about, that what do we do with people that leave the Commonwealth, go off somewhere in the world and establishes their residence there? We need to think about them. And then we have students that are going off island to further their education. People that are being sent out on medical referrals or just personal trip out to seek health care outside of the Commonwealth. And then we have people that are also incarcerated. We need to be mindful of these people that we have in these categories of events that people do. we need to understand the written regulations, the written laws that we have in the Commonwealth Board of Election Commission, and take it very seriously how we handle these types of situations. People that are incarcerated, for example, sure, they have the right to vote, but what about the people that are incarcerated and serving lifetime in prison, in a facility? Do they have the right to vote? Are they given the privilege to vote? These are the things that we need to look into. Sometimes I'm thinking that a life sentence folks probably sometimes is something like a person that would go off and seek another place to live and make it their home or record, home or domicile. How do we evaluate this situation and to tie in with our election process? Sure, it's voting, as I said earlier, that it is very sacred. It is a constitutional right that people be afforded the vote. And in no way should there ever be an impediment or people trying to shy them from getting a ballot and casting their votes. But it happens. It happens. So with this responsibility that being we have a what we call an organizational chart in every government offices. And in the commission, in the board, the Commonwealth Board of Election Commission should have one as well. I'm sure there's one in place. We have the chairman, and perhaps maybe there is a vice chairman. And then we also have the executive director. And then I'm not sure the regular and everyday employees in the Board of Election Commission office. I don't know how that is structured, but I know that during election period, we need to be prepared when there is an election coming up. Are the people receiving the proper training? Are they given the proper guidelines to follow prior to an election? Like tomorrow, for example, we start the early voting, and it goes right through to November 5th, which is the actual last day of election. How soon do we ensure that these people are trained, are educated? Because in my mind, I'm thinking that poll workers and supervisors, technicians, or whatever you call them, we have to gather people to come in and assist in the voting process. How knowledgeable are these people when they are brought in to assist in our voting process? That's very important. if we don't provide the proper training, instructions, and guidelines, then obviously we should know that perhaps they wouldn't know what to do. So those are the things that we need to look into and improve it if it needs anywhere, not just in that area. But how do we assist voters as they come up to vote? We need to be patient to them. We need to have some empathy and give them all the necessary needs and instruction of how to go about the voting process. I mean, I hear so many things like people are, because like when you go out to, for example, to recruit poll workers or supervisors, at what period in time do they coordinate to go out and start looking for people, looking for volunteers, or even if they are to be paid? How soon do we go out before an election period? Do we gather these needed people to come and assist in the voting process? Those are the areas that needs to be paid attention to very, very closely. If the vote starts if the early vote, for example, starts at 7 and ends at 4 p.m., and then on election day, it is, I'm not sure if it's also, if it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and we close the voting period. What happens then? How do we protect the voting, the ballot boxes after we close the voting on election day, whether it be midterm or general election? Do we have enough people guarding and protecting the ballot boxes? As we all understand and know that the CNMI consists of Saipan, Rota, Tinian, and the Northern Islands. How well are these ballot boxes are handled from their point to wherever it needs to be taken to for actual counting? I'm not sure, but I think that there should be a police officer there, and perhaps people that we hire to protect the voting, the ballot boxes when they are secured in those boxes that's going eventually will be transferred from that point to point B, if it's from the school, for example, to the airport, or where they consolidate them all, and then finally transport, because of we know for a fact that ballot boxes will be transferred are being transferred after an election from Rhoda, Tinian, and I'm not sure about the Northern Island, but they need to be brought to the point where the counting will begin process. How much security are in place when this is happening? I know that there is such a thing called chain of custody. And the chain of custody is you watch at that box, you keep an eye on that box until it gets to the point where it's supposed to be delivered to, opened, sorted out, counted, whatever. We have voting machines. We have hand counting that we do. How protected are those voting, the ballot boxes are? Are there enough security? I'm thinking in my mind that when a ballot box is coming from Rhoda, for example, is that perhaps maybe there should be 2 police officers. I'm thinking in my mind now. I don't know what the process is now, but I'm thinking that maybe there should be 2 police officers and maybe one if there's no independent candidate, but if they're Republicans or Democrat, I think there should be one from either party be present the whole time. But my question is, in this process, we're waiting for someone for the transportation to come and pick up these boxes, load it up, and take it to the airport. What happens in the event that if you only have one officer there, and I hear this somewhere, what happens when an officer needs to go use the restroom, for example? A funny kind of thing, but when an officer had to leave because he has to use the restroom, is there an officer present to watch for that ballot box? That's why I'm thinking that maybe there should be 2, same as the other parties, members that are present there. So these are the things that we need to be very careful about, because there are 3 types of not violation, but areas that we need to be very mindful about, because we don't have to worry about cyber tampering or hacking or anything like that, because I don't think we do electronics here. We handle paper ballots. Now, people should be tasked to do one thing and one thing only, not to be multitasked to do several things, because that could create a problem. So these are the areas, and of course, I hear so many concerns as well about voters coming from Rhoda, for example, on a medical referral to Saipan to seek medical care here during an election period. And they're stuck here. But when the actual election day comes, they happen to be here in Saipan, for example, or from someone from Rhoda here in Saipan, or someone from Tinian are here. Or even traveling to Guam, for example. And they're having problem getting back to the actual place where they need to cast their votes, or even meeting the time to register to vote. Are they being considered? Those are the areas that we need to look into.
Mr. Cabrera, in the interest of time, can you wrap up your remarks?
Yes. And so, one more thing, Madam Chair. It's funny that when I joined the Marine Corps in 1965, I was drafted in the Army, and then the Marines came and said, now you are a Marine. Marine Corps birthday is coming up in about 13 days from now. I joined the Marine Corps when the Marine Corps came. I was sworn in the Army and then sworn in the Marines. I was actually inducted in the United States Marine Corps on November 10 of 1965. That is the Marine Corps birthday. Marine Corps birthday is celebrating their 248th year anniversary. It's been 59 years since I joined the Marines and retired. But thank you for listening. And I hope that I get your nomination, the confidence and can consider my nomination to come in and serve as a board member. And I promise that I will fulfill those duties and obligation. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cabrera, and thank you for your service to our nation and more importantly to our Commonwealth. At this time, I will open the floor for Ms. Florence Sablon to give her opening remarks if she chooses to do so.
Half a day and good morning, Chair Babauta and committee members. I want to thank Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apatang for nominating me to be a member of the Commonwealth Election Commission to represent Saipan and the Northern Islands. I also want to thank this committee for giving me an opportunity to come before you today to answer any questions you may have for me this morning. If confirmed, I hope I may be an asset to the Commission during my term. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sablon, and thank you also for your many years of dedicated service to our Commonwealth. And at this time, I will now open the floor for the members to ask their questions. Unfortunately, Senator Paul, due to technical issues, is offline right now. We will try to get him online later on. But at this time, I will open the floor for the other members. I will recognize Senator Karina Magofnia first.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and good morning to you both, Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Sablon. Undang Kuluna Sidus Mahasi, Mr. Cabrera, for your years of service with our nation's armed forces. And to you, Ms. Sablon, Undang Kuluna Sidus Mahasi, for your dedication and commitment to serve to your community involvement with the Red Cross. Your years of volunteer certainly speaks volume for your compassion and commitment to our community. So thank you both again for your services. There's a couple of proposed legislations introduced by Senator Paul Manglona, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it yet, but one of them, and both has to do with election voting. So I can start with the first one, which is the Senate Bill 23-68. And in that proposed legislation, it is asking to allow voting at any polling places on the election day, which you kind of touched up, Mr. Cabrera. So I would like to hear what your thoughts are regarding that legislation. So basically, for instance, we have patients from Rhoda or Tinian here on Saipan for medical treatment or whatever appointments they may have, and it just so happened to be during the election time. And on election day, they are legally required at this time to fly back to their senatorial district where they are registered. But Senator Paul is proposing that on election day to allow voting at any polling place wherever they may be on that day. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that proposed legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Governor, for that question. My thoughts in that area would be to allow them to vote where they are located, especially on during. This is not. I mean, they're not here to. They didn't fly here to play poker or get into a bingo game or whatever, but they're here on a medical reason. They should be afforded the right to vote here in Saipan. They're residing in Rhoda, but they came here for medical treatment purpose. It is beyond anybody's control that they need to come here. We need to be careful about that. Why should that person be denied to vote? Why that person should be required to fly back to Rhoda during the process of a medical treatment or evaluation? I think that we should put that in place and make it legal for them to be afforded to vote on a voting period. That's my thought on that. Thank you, Senator McGovern.
Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Sablan.
Yes, I watched two of the hearings for the members of the CEC, and I heard Senator Paul's questions and comments and this bill in particular. We have the absentee system, and we all know for a lot of our patients, sometimes they know ahead of time that they're going to be sent here, so they have a chance to apply for register for absentee. Now, yes, I'm mindful about sometimes it's an emergency. I think that's something that we should look into and amend the statute if needed or the regulations. Because it's true that anybody who's here for medical reasons, especially an emergency, should be allowed to vote. But again, we have to remember that you have to amend the statute or the regulations. That's one of the reasons, actually, I agreed to this nomination, because I have years of experience working for the government for two agencies. And I'm sad that Senator Paul is not here, because I remember going to him for a lot of our bills, to lobby for the bills to become law, and also to discuss how this bill will affect our professionals. I was executive director for professional licensing and also for the medical board later on down the road. So anytime that, there's any changes to the voting procedure, we have to be mindful that the statute has to be amended and the regulations, so that there's no challenges ahead of lawsuits and all of that. I have seen what I did before coming up here today for the past several days. I have researched for a lot of the laws in the US, which is vote.gov. It's a lot of information. There's a lot of nonprofit agencies that do surveys and all of that on all different voting procedures and all of that, and which I think would help us in the future. Thank you.
To Masi, Ms. Sablan, for your response. The other proposed legislation that Senator Paul introduced is the Senate Legislative Initiative 23-05, which he is proposing to do a ranked choice voting for the offices of the governor and lieutenant governor. In the last general election, there were 3 candidates vying for the position, and in this proposed legislation, he is proposing that we do a ranking during voting. So instead of going into the runoff shit that occur, if we, in the initial voting, if we could just rank them, and whoever comes in first and second, right, gets their votes, and then the third is distributed accordingly to how it was ranked. So is that a legislation that you two would support for future elections?
Absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so that's another one I researched into in the US. Actually, I was surprised that a lot of states now are going into ranked choice voting. I was kind of doubtful when I started reading about it, but in fact, for 2024, there was additional 10 states that amended their statute to go into ranked choice. I think the most successful when it first started was Alaska. And this will help us because Alaska is sort of, I've done a lot of research of my previous boards where I compare with Alaska because of the population, which is similar to ours, and the diverse community. So most of the research or the surveys that have been done really promote ranked choice voting, though it is difficult to start after amending the statute and the regulations. It's expensive because, yes, you don't have the runoff, but then right after the first initial voting, then you go to the next, depending on the number of votes. So it takes a while to get the results. But the way I see it with the surveys that have gone on, they are looking into more states amending their statutes to start doing ranked choice voting.
Thank you for your response, Ms. Sablan. I yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Magovnia. I recognize Senator Donald Maglone.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you both. And again, thank you both for your services to our country and our Commonwealth. And congratulations on your nomination to serve on the CEC. I don't really have any questions, but more of recommendations and something to look into. I've stated this in several hearings of CEC nominees, and that, since the first one that we've had, I'm not sure if it was Ms. Babalsa or someone before her, we hadn't seen much changes since then, or any proposals to amend certain legislations. But I'm sure a lot of these can be done through amending the regs as opposed to going the statute route. One of the concerns that I wanted to bring up is just the registration process. As you know, individuals would have to register by mail, but yet when they request for absentee, they can do so by going online and filling out a form. And so why haven't we shifted towards that advancement, and where they can submit whatever documents they need electronically and get registered? Additionally, like what the floor leader had mentioned, and what Senator Paul was trying to look at, is how do we provide for an equal opportunity for all individuals, regardless of which island they're on, to include voting on election day, but also the registration process. On Rota and Tinian, there's no election office, and so individuals would have to register through a commissioner at their own time, at their own availability, and so it kind of maybe discourages some of these individuals. I know that the Board of Election, or the Commonwealth Election Office, has made themselves available on certain days prior to election, but I mean, it could be as simple as sending in the registration, whether they do it by email or by mail. I know that in the past, I've had somebody register by mail because they were unable to find a commissioner available to receive their application, but yet their registration wasn't counted. And so we lost an opportunity there. And so just some of those little stuff that we can assist and make the registration process easier for people if the elections office isn't able to provide for an employee on Rota or Tinian. Another issue that I brought up, and I think it hasn't been addressed, is the failure to vote for those who are voting through absentee, and that if their ballots don't come in by election day, they would be marked as fail to vote. But if they sent out their ballot prior to election day and it just didn't arrive on time, there should be some special considerations done, or still count them as somebody who have voted, but their vote didn't count because of the time it took for those ballots to come in. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention, so that if confirmed, I think that's something that I hope you guys look into and see if that's something that could be addressed through amendment of the regulations. And lastly, as part of the Commonwealth Elections Commission, I think it's your duty to also handle the NMD registry. A lot of times we try to get information to try to enact legislations that maybe would improve the lives of our NMD, but no agency seems to have an accurate number of those who are registered under or as an NMD. And so I think that's something that the elections office can look into and try to invite more individuals to register, so that we can keep track of those who may qualify for future benefits. And so if we can just get an accurate listing of that and try to see how we can improve on that system. And then just going back to one of the legislation and trying to get people to vote on Saipan on election day. I know, Mr. Cabrera, you mentioned a lot of these instances are a result of medical, but we do have some residents who are living here and are working here. But then for whatever reasons, they're unable to show up during early voting. They would have to fight a road on election day. And I think one of the reasons that the director commented on was the cost, I think, to have additional ballots here in Saipan. I mean, if we can spend over $10,000 to charter a boat to bring ballots up to the Northern Islands for less than 10 people, I don't see why there's an issue with cost in terms of providing additional ballots here in Saipan. And so just giving every voter the same opportunity as those living here on Saipan is all we ask for. And so I hope that you can work alongside our Rota and Tinian commissioners to address these problems, and whether it's something that should be done through legislation to communicate with the legislature to see how we can assist in amending these statutes. So that's all I have. Based on your experiences and your resume, I'm more than confident in your ability to sit in the commission and represent the people. And so thank you. That's all I had, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Donald. One of the concerns we often hear is the delay in getting the results, whether it's from Rhoda or Tinian, or even Saipan, the entire, the cumulative results. And the longer the delay in the people hearing the results, even for one precinct, it harbors feelings of mistrust or distrust in the process itself. So one of the things I've also mentioned in previous hearings for other nominees for CEC is it helps to communicate with the public. There is a podium there to be providing updates, whether it's from the executive director or the chairman of the board, to at least, you know, come out and say we're experiencing delays in the machine, kicking out a lot of the ballots because it's sensing something that's not normal on those specialized papers that the ballots are printed on. So I hope that, you know, this election process, I'd like to see more of that. Updates, all we see are in the background on TV are, you know, commissioners huddling, and we don't know what they're discussing. And we may not be privy to that, but at least an update from somebody with authority from the election commission would be very, very helpful to the public. So I hope that if you guys are confirmed by the full Senate, that is addressed. One of the other issues we've had recently in fairly recent elections, at least in 2020 is when I started noticing it. By law, election commission is required to break down the results by precincts. That did not happen in 2020. It did not happen in the special election after that. There was only one precinct in that. It did not happen in the 2022 election that I know of. Statistics are important. Information gathering is critical in any department. So that is what I'd like to see happen this election, to restore confidence from the candidate running to the public to the supporters. You know, they're interested in details like this. And not only that, statistics are very important to inform future policies or regulations. So I hope that is implemented, you know, re-implemented actually, because it used to be broken down by precincts. Mr. Cabrera, based on your background and experiences, what do you think is your what skills do you think you have that prepares you to be a commissioner for the Commonwealth Election Commission?
My personal experience is just by listening to people talk, going online and reviewing different situations in different jurisdictions with regards to voting, and how, as I said earlier, voting is a sacred thing that we're all instructed to do during a voting period. As we all know, you know, voting is the foundation of our democracy, and it should be protected. Not only affording the people the right to vote, but we need to concentrate, I think, more in those areas that that are being discussed here, with regards to the voter registration, mail-in ballots. What happens when the mail is acting slow in delivering the mail in time for it to be received in the and be counted. So my question is, like, so what happened also, referring back to Senator Minglonia, what happened to those mail-in ballots that don't get received? And then Senator mentioned that Minglonia mentioned that they're not counted. as voting. My take on that, we should consider perhaps maybe setting a period of time, and even beyond actual the election period, and hearing the Madam Chair's comment as well, as for those votes that are being sorted out, and for counting or for being processed through the voting machines, and then printing out the total tallying of votes. What happens when a machine breaks down? Then of course the only other choice to do, or option to do, would be to manually count those ballots. How are those things?
Come again?
really-
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? About counting, manual counting.
If in the event that a voting machine is in process of feeding, spinning out all these ballots and printing the results of each voter, in the event that that machine breaks down, then everything has to stop unless there's a technician that could revive the machine back within a matter of probably minutes, but definitely not hours. Could that be the problem that we're having with such long delays in getting the actual results of the number of votes to each candidates? I don't know, but when a machine breaks down, then theoretically you have to resort to hand counting. This is, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, that the longer it takes to get a final count, like what happened in the last general election, is people were so anxious to receive the actual result of the tallies in the voting process. People were leaving there. I mean, it was so late. It was going into the morning hours. So we need to understand where the glitches are, where the complications started. And I'm sure that, the executive directors here and maybe could probably share some thoughts or what happens in a lengthy delay of producing the actual total number of votes, so we can hear it in a very timely manner and not wandering, leaving the people worrying that perhaps maybe there may be some fraud going on or tampering going on or something. We need to be very mindful in these areas. I don't know how many voting machines we have in like, say, for example, if we do it at the multi-purpose center or wherever it's being done. I'm not even sure that we actually got the information as to what happened there with the delay in the counting of votes. But this is something that is a serious matter that needs to be paid attention to, and making sure that things are being run smoothly, and that people are just not running it everywhere, trying to figure out what to do next, because when those things are happening, a lot of other things are happening. And there's a saying in an election period: you see something, you say something. You have to be vigilant when this situation arises. You cannot just be like running around. Your eyes should be focused at every point within a consolidation station for the ballots to be counted. So going back again earlier to what happens to, there should be something to do with ballots that are delayed arriving in the mail. I think they're doing it in the States. I think beyond that, they should be counted as well. There should be a period that we need to set aside for that kind of situation.
I think there's current regulations and statute in place that the ballots have to be received by election day. That's the current regulation. So,
But what I'm saying, Madam Chair, is it's beyond anybody's control. If I mail in a ballot, I want my ballot to be counted. I want my vote to be counted, because that would be very frustrating, and it wouldn't make the voter very comfortable. I would think that I did all these, run around getting the ballots printed out, or how they get a hold of a ballot, fill it out, sign it. And then there are ballots that are being mailed in that perhaps maybe the voter forgot to sign the ballot. I don't know what happens there. How do we treat that particular? And they come in, they arrive on time, but how do we perceive how do we perceive procedure and including, to make that inclusive as a ballot that's casted by the voter? I would be very depressed, and maybe it'll give the people the notion that maybe the people that are handling the ballots could care less, perhaps about voting the next time. So these are the things, I mean, because you need to maintain that encouragement to go out there and cast your ballots, to vote. Because how else would we? Because if you don't vote, then you have no reason to complain, to cry about anything, because you didn't exercise your vote. Because that's democracy. Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you, Mr. Cabrera. Ms. Sablon, would you like to answer? What skill or experience do you have that would be appropriate for you to serve in the Election Commission?
Like I mentioned earlier, with my background with Board of Professional Licensing and the Medical Board, where I drafted all the amendments to the statutes, all the regulations for each profession, with a lot of research to fit in to our community, our professionals, yet meeting the U.S. requirements so that they could practice in the States. I think I could use that to help this Commonwealth Election Commission. In fact, I went to see the director when I found out I was nominated, because I wanted to get a copy of the statute and the regulations, ask questions, and the director informed me that the statute has not been amended for years. At one time, they tried, and it passed the House, and it did not pass the Senate. I used to lobby for my bills all the time from the House and the Senate to explain why we were trying to amend. Those are the things, because reading the regulations and the statute, it needs to be amended to get on with the times, the trend. And again, all the research I did with the US, which is, this thing is the vote.usa, is just great. I mean, it's a lot of research, a lot of nonprofit that are there, like scrutinizing. So a lot of the things he mentioned, it's already in the statute. It just maybe needs to be amended. Senator Manglonia, the one you said about registering online, that's what's going on in the US now. You register online. With the mail system, I'm surprised there was reading all this that's happening in the US. Of course, with our area, it's harder because of the distance where our people in the US are what's sending in. Even in the States where the deadline is election day, you have all these things. It even goes to court because of parties saying it was fraud and all that. But again, like I said, there's the nonprofit that do all this research and provide it to the courts. I was even surprised reading it that a lot of it was definitely not fraud. It's just the mail system was not designed for ballots. And, so yet, so many states, it will be the commissioners, I guess, who will sit down and say, well, because there's times when there's no postmark, but usually they follow postmarks. Some, I think there's 18 states where they go, if there's no postmark, they follow the date that the voter signed that affidavit. And when you read all this research, and I'm surprised to see this from the states, a lot of it comes out to, there was no fraud. It's just the mail system, which is not designed for ballots. So there's a lot of things we could do better by amending if the statute or maybe the regulations itself. The NMD registry you mentioned, Senator Manglonia, I agree with that. Maybe we have to remember that there's only an election every 2 years, no? These are some of the things that the staff could also be doing while there's no election. I have used NMC students previously before for projects I have with American Red Cross or other stuff, and work with the college where they get credits for doing some of this work. I see NMC students that could help the board of the CEC with this NMD registry. We definitely need to have a record of the number of NMDs. It's not scientific. I mean, it's something, getting information, and I'm sure the students will be happy to work with the what you mentioned, Chair Babalta, the updates. I think that should be done. People are anxious to hear, right? So it should be something, maybe even some of the commissioners just go up and, okay, you're next, go and do an update, It's 24 hours thing. I mean, I've seen it with my brother, So I think we should be informing the public, do an update. Now, the breakdown of votes by precinct, that should be required, because that's another way for the candidates who are running from that particular precinct to say, okay, so last election, these are the number of votes. We have to remember, even though people register to vote, some people don't go and vote. So you need those numbers from each precinct to help you, maybe do more house to house or, things like that. I didn't realize that they're not doing it by precinct. I don't want to promise anything because I'm just new, but I think it's something that should be done.
I remember there was a long period of early voting due to typhoon. I think it was Super Typhoon U2 at that point. And after the results had come in, they claimed that the election commission claimed that they couldn't do it by precincts at that time because of all the chaos that the typhoon had created, which is understandable. But I'm not sure at this point if their machines, because I know they're programmed to provide statistics depending on the parameters of what you input. For example, you could get the demographics, how many of 25-year-old, 18 to 25-year-olds voted in this election. These are all critical information. And I've done a lot of research too online. It is critical to inform policies. And that is the main interest of that. I'm glad you mentioned, some things that I would like to point out. Election only happens every 2 years in here. And I don't know what happens with the board in between, but I think that they should be meeting regularly because we know for a fact that regulations and the statute need to be amended. We have sent drafts of legislation, and I know this from 4 years ago, to amend the statute for the election commission to provide their input so that we're not introducing legislation that may conflict with whatever regulations they adopt. We have never received any feedback. The legislation is still with the election commission. So these are things we are trying to improve, but without the cooperation of the election commission or the board in particular, because they promulgate the rules and adopt it, we can't amend the statute. We can, actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. We can, but it may conflict with whatever. And we leave it up to the people who serve on these boards because they know better than we do here at the legislature to amend these policies. So, and also I think the board needs to be meeting frequently after an election. And as you mentioned, to reflect the changing needs of the constituents. We have been practicing these policies and practices for over a decade. Nothing has changed. As far as I know, nothing has changed in terms of registration or confined voters. Or the only thing that did change was the curbside voting, I think, because of COVID. We had to adapt to it. So those are just some things that I, excuse me, would like to see improved. I really don't have any further questions. Do you have anything further to add, Ms. Saban? I'm sorry I interrupted you in the middle of.
Well, maybe because the director maybe she doesn't have an experience of drafting, to amend the statute and the regulations, or I don't know about the board members. But one thing is, like I used to do with professional licensing and the medical board, is while I'm doing all that, I still come in and I meet with the reps and the senators to see what they think about it, so that when you do submit it or it's up for discussion, they're aware of it. And, I would ahead of time already answer their questions. And I told the director, I said, I would love to help because I'm from here. Anything to do that will amend the statute, that will make it better for all of us. My thinking growing up, I always have this thinking as a helping like Red Cross or others, or even with my work, is that I always think, is this good for my children and grandchildren? The future, right? We're just here borrowing this land for our future. So anything we do, we have to think that way. So I think this is something I'm looking forward to work with the director and the commissioners. Remember also that all of you, congressmen and senators, any amendments to the statute or the regs might affect you, right? So if we start coming in, giving you the drafts and look at it, and my thing is I do a lot of research. There's answers out there. You just have to find something to fit our community. It's there. Just doing this little research, I'm surprised. It already surprises me, but that it's there. So it's just I think taking a lot of time, and I want to help Kayla with that, and the other commissioners. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Are there any further questions? Recognize Senator Corina Magovnia.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Ms. Sablan, for truly thank you for being proactive and taking the initiative and effort to approach the executive director to inquire more about existing laws and regulations that affect, our people. As she had mentioned to you, right, that some of the regulations or even statutes haven't been changed in many, many years, and so I'm sure there are some that no longer apply in today's environment, and I look forward to all the commissioners coming together and working to help improve the the laws that affect our people. So thank you for that. I did ask this in one of the in our last hearing with one of the nominees, and it has to do with displaced voters. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there are constituents that, for example, that used to be in precinct 3, and as a result of the typhoon, right, they were displaced and had to move elsewhere in a different precinct. And some of them, for many years now, have resided in the other precinct, but still vote, where they are registered. And so I would like to get your thoughts on whether or not there should be a timeline, kind of like a threshold of, if you haven't lived in that precinct for, let's say, 5 years, you have to register in the precinct that you now currently reside, or should we just leave it the way as is? Because I know there have been like complaints brought up in the past where we know so and so was living in Cagman but still voting in precinct 3, but there could be so many reasons why that has happened, right? But at some point, should we standardize policies to say, like, look, if you've been residing elsewhere for the last 5 years, it's time to register in the precinct that you are currently residing. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Senator Magonia, these are the things that we need to really pay close attention to. And I agree with my co-nominee here. She mentioned a lot of good things, a lot of areas that we need to focus on. But in my the day that I go in and start my first day, I would definitely be concentrating and looking into statutes, looking into directives, looking into regulations, codes, whatever there is, and the CEC is to review them. And as you review, there are going to be areas where you will notice that what you just got through reading may pertain to the situation that we are just now talking about. Every one of them are important, and we need to figure out if it's an area that needs to be improved, then we need to take steps into looking into discussing with the board members how can we improve that. if it needs to be improved, then let's act on it. Now, going back to if for someone who is voting in one precinct and moved to another for whatever reason, if it's a lengthy stay in a different precinct, then he shouldn't be voting in that precinct. They may be circumstantial reason why that person is staying in a different precinct. We need to understand that. We need to know why is that so. If maybe this person has a sick parent living in a different precinct, and now has to move to a different precinct to care for a sick member in the family. Various other situations that we need to look into and concentrate in if these different situations need to be addressed. And if we need to take action to make some changes, then let's do it. I'm for that. We can be, because like, in the CEC, if my co-nominee here and I goes in, the first thing that we should be doing is looking into regulations, looking into the employees that are in there and finding out what responsibilities do they have. And and sitting down when we need to sit down, when we call on a meeting to discuss matters that are affecting voter registration, mail-in ballots. The entire process needs to be looked into. And if we see areas that needs to be improved, then by all means, let's do it. And I'm a person too with, you go in, you're given a responsibility, you're supposed to go in there and act on it and make sure it is done correctly. And also making sure that everybody is understanding, has the and the concurrence of all parties involved in this process. We're not going to be working. She and I will not be a full-time employee in the CUC, but those times. So I'm. My belief in that is that when we're not sitting down and discussing matters, whether it's to improve, to change regulations, documents, or whatever, we should be also thinking about how to manage and run the voting process that's affecting so many people, and they need to understand how the process works, because many people, like for example, that person who moves from one precinct temporarily goes to another, and then finding out that he's voting in a different precinct. I don't think that I agree with that. But in certain circumstances, it is our job to find out how we can accommodate this person to make sure that we afforded the right for him to cast their ballots and be counted. It goes the same with people with disability. Are the voting stations equipped with with voting booths, giving them the ample space to move around. If there are wheelchair bound disabled person is what I'm talking about, because there is an act of 1990 that requires the different areas in our community, and especially voting places where they have to go and cast their votes. They need to be familiarized with everything that goes about, and what to do when they reach that point. All these things are important things. Now, my co-nominee mentioned about, go out and inform the general public on the process of voting. This is something that we might be able to coordinate and conduct town hall meetings or something. Maybe go to school and make presentations, even to the college, and do presentations, just so that we provide the necessary elements and knowledge of what goes about in time of election, that ties in how does that go? Well, it starts out with, you have to have nominees, and then you also have to have voters 18 and older, not deceased. These are the areas that we need to look into. And I agree with my co-nominee here that when we go in there, in the times that we're not spending time sitting down in the office discussing things, we could also be looking into how to improve this system, the voting system, the delay in mail-in ballots, people residing in different areas and wanting to contribute their vote to a place where they have not filed their tax in, but they want to put their 2 cents in. It's okay, but don't go online and start talking about this. This is what should happen when you're living all your life in the States somewhere, for example, and to tell someone that you don't have the right to run for office. Or these are the kind of things that we need to, we listen to these things. These are also concerns, but and to figure out whether these people would be provided the opportunity to be given a ballot to cast their votes on, and send it out. And these are the areas. And so definitely we're going to be concentrating in these things. And I rest assured that we will smooth out these different areas. And we need to promulgate new regulations or write up about how we should improve things. By all means, let's do it. It's not a joke. And it's not anything that we take very lightly. It's a serious event that we get ourselves involved into, and we need to work at and hard if it need be. Thank you.
So this Mr. Cabrera, I just wanted to share that issue that has come up, from constituents. So I think at some point it needs to be addressed. And as long as it's properly substantiated, right? For instance, you said that if they had to relocate to a different precinct to care for their elders or whatever the case may be, as long as it's documented and approved by the commission, maybe that is something that, needs to be done. But Ms. Sablan, did you have a response for that question?
I think something like that, the regulation should be amended and set a deadline, like how long. Anytime when you can amend the statute of regs to make it where somebody challenges it, it's already there. So that don't waste time or having just anything. Yeah. It should be amended.
I agree
and
because right
already.
now it's silent, right? So if anyone
Yes,
was
it's silent.
to
So,
dispute or anything, right, there are no
yes.
resolutions for it because there's nothing in place to kind of go through the process. But that's definitely something I feel that the commission should look into and maybe promulgate some regulations to
Yes.
have for the future. One last question, Chair. So I think currently, as it stands, there are no requirements for candidates running for office to declare whether or not they are like convicted felons. I think last time when I asked, but I think it's something,
Yeah.
it's an important
I looked
requirement.
Into, yeah. I looked into it because I remember Senator Manglonia asked that question.
Yes.
That a candidate is not required to have a police clearance.
Yes.
I researched it and it's not required anywhere. So I'm just like, what? Why? But honestly, even in the US,
It's not even a
Nothing.
requirement.
it's
Oh,
not a
interesting.
requirement. So we could always be the first one.
Absolutely. I just feel that if we have
I mean,
candidates,
if you can't vote, if you're a
Convicted
felon or what,
why are you allowed to run?
Because sometimes, and I think it's happened here, right? Where after somebody was found
I'm
to
not-
be,
oh,
after the fact.
yeah.
So, but I haven't researched everything,
Okay.
but just like I said, you go into that vote.com and there's nothing there.
Sure.
There's articles about it, but nothing about requiring it. So,
Yeah, it's just an interesting
yes.
concept, right?
Yeah.
To have a convicted felon should that person want to be introducing legislations,
Right.
right? So it's just something that I would like to throw out there. But thank you for your response, Mr. Cabrera. Did you have a response to that?
Yes, and I just also want to express my gratitude and appreciation to the people that came today, supported this nomination on my behalf and the behalf of my co-nominee. But yes, we definitely need to look into the different areas that's involved in the voting process, and to prepare people as well to again, as I mentioned earlier, poll workers and supervisors, that they understand exactly what their roles are when they report to the voting polls for duty. Because I've also heard in some cases that where a voter comes in and to vote, and I heard that some of the people in the voting area that's assisting voters to be directed to where they need to go to complete their ballots processing and everything, that some of the voting staffs, rather the poll staff or supervisors, are not so inclined and having the knowledge that they need to have in the process, even directing people to go or to answer questions. Because as I mentioned earlier, that this place, you're supposed to be ready to accommodate the people when they walk into a voting polls to vote. is to make them, number one, is to make them feel very comfortable and not be intimidated. And there should not be, we should not be, you cannot be partial and you cannot be biased when it comes to helping people out. Because in a voting poll, there are different people, different parties that are in there assisting, with the exception of you cannot be a government official. And I don't know if this is our exercise here, but a government official should not be participating in the voting process. I think just to eliminate any, if people are thinking of defrauding the process or whatever. I think elected officials should not be in the polls working. I think I know that. You cannot be an employee of the government. You should be just a voter. I think a citizen voting in the Commonwealth should be the people that are in there, and of course the CEC folks are there. So this is something that we need to look into as well, because in the States, that's the way it is structured. And, we don't, we're in such a small community. And, if anyone thinks of doing any kind of unfairness process or doing, then they should not be allowed in the voting polls places. You need to wipe out all your if you're a party of a Democrat or Republican, you cannot be biased and be working in an election polls, or just even discuss matters that pertains to voting. So yes, but we will definitely look into these areas, and with your help, ultimately, when we come up with ideas to present for any improvements or changes to be made, then we can surely do that and present it and look into if this is a valid way of improving things, making things better, and less suffering for the people that work hard, especially for the people that are eligible to vote. By all means, that's their right, and we should not interfere with that. No one should have the right to interfere with the people's right to vote in any level of election, whether it be midterm or the general election. Or people, I've heard, stories in places in the U.S. where people would go in and because it gets really nasty, especially even now. The U.S. election right now is so nasty. It's like, oh man, we're we're gonna take down this, never mind being never mind the democracy. Let's forget about that and just do what we need to do to garner a win, to win an election by people. We're people, and we're susceptible to making mistakes as well as susceptible to doing bad things and interfering with an election process. And this is not good. For example, even DC now is the co-nominee here is talked there's so many different things that's happening in the states. For example, like in Washington DC, for example, during a council election, anyone, immigrants, illegal immigrants can go in and vote in a council election in the Washington DC area. Never mind ID, never mind you're just, here's a ballot, you go vote who you want to vote. But then when it comes to an election where people are filling top government positions, president, governor, congresswoman, men, senators, they're given, they have to be given all the means, all the tools necessary to complete the process, the voting process. You have to have an identification. But even in Washington, D.C., or even in New York, for example, you can, and many states throughout the United States where people can go in and just give them your name, give the people there working in the polls, give them their name and address, and they'll verify that if those are correct, they're eligible to vote. They don't need no picture IDs or any other verification. We don't have that problem here, I don't think. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cabrera. I yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Magovnya. One last recommendation that I have is outreach. I hope that in between elections that the CEC goes out. They used to do it. They used to perform outreach to the schools, outreach to improve their registration numbers. One of the outreach that they used to do is the staff of the election commission used to go out to the high schools and inform them, graduating seniors, that you can register to vote in that year's election if you are at least 18 years old at the time of the election. I don't see outreach happening as of late, so I just wanted to toss that in. Should you guys get it confirmed, that would be one of the, I guess, improvements that we can make with this election process. And Ms. Sablon, would you like to lend your thoughts on outreach issues?
Thank you, Chair Babalta. Actually, I was going to bring that up. I don't know if you're aware, I was Tina Sablon's chair when she ran the last time. I go out and I talk to a lot of the students. I ask their opinion. Are they voting? I come to find out that a lot of our children that are born here, but not Chamorros or Carolinians, they don't seem interested to register. I would talk to their parents. I even went to the point of encouraging them, taking them to Board of Election, talking to their parents. I tell them that even though you're not local, it's your responsibility. They are getting, some of them are getting benefits, know that. And I'm very strong in our diverse community. Everybody has a right, everybody's equal. I learned all that when I was with Red Cross. Typhoons do not discriminate, they hurt everyone. So a lot of these kids, their parents would be like, well, because, why, maybe some people think because we're not from here, why should we vote? I said, no, you all have the responsibility to vote. That's the only way we can make changes for you and your families here. So one thing I thought about is that maybe, again, using NMC students or even the commissioners during the time when there's no elections or closer to the election, 6 months before, to the seniors, go to the schools and talk to them about their responsibility as voters and why they should vote. To help them understand, and that, we could increase our registration during election time. I am glad you brought that up, Chair, because that's something that we should go back to continuing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sablon. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Cabrera? If not,
Yes, I hear Mr. Blonde's comments on this in this area, and I agree with that. And take for example, when I was in the Marine Corps, stationed out in San Jose, California, when we're not too busy, we would go to schools. We would go to high school, we go to college, and talk about how to recruit, to bring young men and women to join the Marine Corps. And this is a very effective tool of getting people involved, let alone we need to make sure that people understand how important it is to be able to vote, go in and cast your ballot. Because if you don't understand that, and this is tie in with what we're talking about, is if we go out and to the community and let them know what it means to vote and make your vote counted, would add on to the, I believe, for the betterment of the community. And if we do this, rest assured that perhaps people will give it in their minds a thought and maybe think about maybe they should be involved. I truly believe in that process, is to go and do an outreach, going to schools, going do a town hall meeting. Whether we do it in a village to village thing, we can do that too. But I'm for that. I thank you, Madam.
thank you, Mr. Cabrera. That's all we have for today. The committee appreciates your service to our Commonwealth, and we do have in possession your supporting documents, including your resumes. And I want to express the committee probably would not have any issues recommending or to advance your nomination for confirmation to the full Senate. At this time, both nominees, Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Sablon, you are hereby dismissed.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, miscellaneous. Do any of the members have anything? Thank you. And then lastly, adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
So move.
Seconded.
Thank you. A motion has been made and it has been seconded. Are there any concerns or objections to the motions? To the motion? Let me finish. Any objections to the motion? If there are none, the motion hereby passes. This meeting is hereby adjourned. It is now 12:01 p.m. Thank you.